Day 4 begins with talking about the different types of reactions. Specifically, we're going to talk about two types of reactions, synthesis and decomposition. The goals for Day 4 are that you are able to identify what a synthesis and decomposition reaction are, and that you can predict the products in words for both of those types of reactions. Just generally, though, there are a few main types of chemical reactions. There's synthesis, decomposition, single replacement, double replacement, and combustion. Again, we're going to be focusing on those first two, synthesis and decomposition, for Day 4. The rest of them we will go over on Days 5 and 6. Now, when it comes to predicting products, that's the result of the reaction, you need to know a little bit about what the reactions involve. So for a synthesis reaction, that's when you have two elements that combine together to form a compound. The common form of that reaction is element plus element yields compound. It also can be abbreviated using A plus B will yield AB. Looking at some examples of synthesis reaction, sodium, which is a metal, plus chlorine, which is a nonmetal, will yield sodium chloride. So put those two together, and the naming convention for ions works here as well. So sodium, when it becomes an ion, keeps its name because it's a metal. Chlorine, because it's a nonmetal, you change the ending to IDE. So that when you're doing a synthesis reaction, the metal stays the same name. The nonmetal, you change the ending to IDE. Let's look at another example, magnesium plus phosphorus. Now we know those two things are going to combine together to form one compound, and that magnesium is going to keep its name, and phosphorus is going to change the ending to IDE. So when you add magnesium and phosphorus together, it makes magnesium phosphide. Sulfur and aluminum, you need to identify which is the metal and which is the nonmetal. This is going to yield aluminum sulfide. Just because sulfur is listed first doesn't mean it's the metal. So you need to look at the periodic table and determine which one is a metal and which one is a nonmetal when you do these synthesis reactions. They will, however, always have two elements that are combining to form one compound. For decomposition reactions, this is when you have a compound that's breaking down into elements or smaller components. So synthesis was taking two things and making one. Decomposition is taking one thing and making two. The common form for this one would be compound yielding element plus element, or AB yields A plus B. Looking at some examples, if we start with potassium nitride, that's going to break down into potassium and nitrogen. So we go opposite from the way we did it before. Nitride is in the compound. We know that once it's in compound form, you add IDE to the end. It was originally nitrogen. So you go back to the nonmetal's original ending. There are a few special decompositions that you just need to memorize. First of that is when you have a metal chlorate. The results of that reaction would be a metal chloride and oxygen. Chlorate is ClO3 and it has a -1 charge. Looking at an example, the decomposition of barium chlorate is going to yield barium chloride and oxygen. That last part in yellow is always a part of the product. Another example of a special decomposition is a metal carbonate. Carbonate is CO3 with a -2 charge. Will always yield that metal oxide and carbon dioxide. So for example, potassium carbonate, when that decomposes, will decompose into potassium oxide and carbon dioxide. And again, that yellow part is always a part of the product. Last one, metal hydroxide will always yield metal oxide and water. Hydroxide is OH with a -1 charge. And for example, if I have tin 4 hydroxide, that's going to decompose into tin 4 oxide and water. It's important that you note you cannot forget the Roman numerals. Tin is still in a compound, so it will still have the same Roman numerals. Those don't change. Finally, that last part there, oxide plus water, those are always a part of the reaction. All right, that's Day 4. Worksheet number 4 goes along with this and practices. So good luck.